أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, in this season of what you have the elections coming up, and you have your political parties, taking their sides, you have your people that are urging and coming after you, you're probably getting more and more phone calls from random numbers you didn't expect, and you're getting text messages and so on and so forth, and people are presenting themselves to you as the best option for you to choose and write down and put your name behind so that you can benefit them in their pursuits and so on and so forth. One of the things we have to be mindful of is the nature of the society that you live in, the nature of the system that is around you, what it presents to you These people are coming, they're talking to you, they're talking to your families, they're talking to your kids. They're seeing all of this play out before them. You watch any of these debates and you see very clearly with your own eyes behavior of people that are running for higher offices, lower offices, whatever it may be. But you see their demeanor, you see their attitude, you see their behavior, and so on and so forth. And you ask yourself this question honestly. Is that how you would like your own child to behave? Is that how you would like your own self to present yourself? Would you ever talk like that in your workspace? Would you ever talk like that at home and expect any kind of good results? One of the things we have to understand, brothers and sisters, is that as Muslims, as believers, we source all of our things from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Nothing is an exception. And we have to be on our toes. Every time something, these people are respected, they're in positions of authority, they have a lot of influence. And that influence will permeate into your household. That influence will permeate into your household. The next time somebody thinks, how am I supposed to debate someone? How am I supposed to go fight for something? What am I supposed to do? And if the only example you have is the example of these people, well, you have an example that is void of what are the ethics of, or the expectations of Allah. What are the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a hadith that's narrated in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, he told Abdul Rahman ibn Samurah radiyallahu anhu, he gave him a piece of advice about seeking authority. He said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Abdul Rahman, la tas'al al-imam. He said, oh Abdul Rahman, do not seek out, don't go asking for authority, to be the ruler, or to have this kind of authority. فَإِنَّكَ إِنْ أُعْتِيتَهَا عَنْ مَسْأَلَةٍ وُكِلْتَ إِلَيْهَا. If you are granted that authority, that position, because of your asking for it, then you will be completely entrusted to it. Meaning it's on you. The results, they're on you. Whatever good, bad happens, it's going to be entrusted to you. You decide. You let yourself make that decision. وَإِنْ أُعْتِيتَهَا عَنْ غَيْرِ مَسْأَلَةٍ أُعِنْتَ عَلَيْهَا أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. But if you are granted that position without asking for it, without being the one seeking it, then you will be helped in that position. You will be assisted in that position. You think, is there any prophet of Allah alayhi wassalatu wassalam, that asked to be a prophet? All of them were put into this situation. You look at the story of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the cave of Hira. What did he ask to be in that position? Did he ask for the angel to come down to be put in that position of authority? The higher the position of authority, the more help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is available to that person, obviously with the level of faith and iman and so on and so forth. But the tradition of us, the believers, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is his advice to us? Don't go seeking these positions. Don't go looking for this kind of role. Why? Because if you do, then all of it is entrusted to you. Go. Allah will leave you to yourself. Do what you think is best. But if you're asked by the people to assume a position of authority, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you in that position. Allah azza wa jalla will be there for you. So by default, you can see the system of where you live is already not basing itself on the advice of who? Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We already have a problem to start with. And you look around in the Muslim world, you already see that same problem. How is authority, how are these positions assumed? We already have a conflict with the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful. Anything that comes afterwards is also going to be things that are not necessarily going to be the best of examples. But one of the things that sticks out is you see people going to great lengths to present themselves as the best possible or the only possible solution to your problems. And the other person on the other side is completely wacko, right? They have no chance whatsoever. They're going to be a disaster and so on and so forth. Doesn't matter which side you're on. Both sides play this game. All sides play this game where they paint themselves as really the only choice for you to have hope, and the other side as completely, ridiculous, and you would have to be stupid to vote for them and so on and so whatever they might make it seem. But this is one of the ethical problems that we have when it comes to talking about yourself in public and so on and so forth. And again, this is an example that's being painted for us in our communities. We need to be mindful of it. Arrogance, pride, kibr, and egocentrism, as they call it. Ego, where your ego is beyond anything else. These are problems the Prophet ﷺ warned us about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us about very severely in many ayat of the Quran. Not just one, right? In many ayat of the Quran, in many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he brings up this issue of arrogance and pride and boasting and presenting yourself as something, right? Like you're the only solution to all of this stuff, we have been warned about. And when this example is being presented to us day in and day out, it is being shown to our children, it is being shown to us, and we're seeing this, we're being influenced and just over inundated with this kind of message. We need a reminder, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about kibr? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about kibr? What does Allah azza wa jalla say about this? And keeping in mind the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if you go and seek a position of authority by asking for it, by seeking it, Allah will give it to you. You are entrusted to it. But if you are sought for a position, then you will have the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. And this is a beautiful, beautiful example in terms of how authority should be granted, especially in the Muslim tradition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Qasas, He said, تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, as for the home of the hereafter, we shall assign it exclusively for those who do not seek عُلُوًا فِي الْأَرْضِ. They don't seek glory, exaltedness. They don't seek high positions, right, in this earth. وَلَا فَسَادًا, and nor do they want to cause mischief and cause problems and sinful behavior and so on and so forth. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, those obedient to Allah shall have the best end. This is a very universal ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But your akhirah is on the line, right? You see, when you have aspirations where you want to place yourself above other people, and you have a desire to be in that position, and you want to operate, and you want to be able to dictate to people what they should do, and you want to have that power, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you something, your akhirah is on the line. Be careful. The home of the hereafter is for those who don't want that. They're not seeking to be in power and in authority over other people. They're not seeking to be in control, because it's a very dangerous thing. Your accountability is at a much higher level than anyone else's when you're in that position. But those who do not seek out that position, and again, this is something that we have to be mindful of, your akhirah is on the line. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Isra, وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّكَ لَن تَخْرِقَ الْأَرْضَ وَلَن تَبْلُغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. Humbling the human being. The most arrogant of human beings, humbling them. He tells us subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not walk upon the earth in an arrogant manner. Don't walk upon the earth in an arrogant manner. And in every generation, it looks different. Well, you remember in your time, what was the cool walk? Right? What was the way that you walked to show that you have, that you're in charge or you're confident, whatever it may be, right? Maybe swaying your shoulders or whatever it is. Long time ago, it was, having how high your head was or whatever it was. Every generation has their different styles of walking. And you can see it. You know it yourself. You know in your culture, like you see it. The way you walk says something about you, how you feel about yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, do not walk on this earth arrogantly. Indeed, you will never tear the earth, nor will you reach the mountains in height. He's humbling us. Right? Your walk is not going to do anything. You're not going to shake this earth. You're not as tall as the mountains. You're not as big as anything else around you. You're just a tiny human being. So be a little humble when you walk. And you know that the walk of the Prophet ﷺ, all of the descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ, the walking of the Prophet ﷺ, they described it as if he was always like in a rush to do something, like he was walking up a hill. Like he was leaning forward, and he always walked like he was busy trying to do something, but he didn't walk in a way that was arrogant. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَلَا تُسَعِرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Do not turn your cheek in contempt to people as you talk to them, and do not walk on the earth with arrogance. Indeed, Allah does not like every self-deluded, boastful person. كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. And this way of speaking to other people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَا تُسَعِرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. Don't turn your cheek in contempt to people. When somebody comes to you and you think you're better than them, you think you're higher than them, you think for some reason that this person is not worthy of your time or your space or whatever it may be, do not ever turn your cheek in contempt. Don't treat people like they are beneath you, is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is trying to say with this figurative speech. Don't treat people as if they're beneath you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when anyone would come and speak to him, we have narrations. There was a little girl in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ is as busy as he is. He's a ruler, he's a governor, he's got so many things on his plate. But when a little girl comes, grabs his hand, and she starts walking and talking, the Prophet ﷺ allows her to take him wherever she wants to take him. She walks around with him for a little bit, he lets her go and walk around for a little bit. There was a woman who had a mental illness. She wasn't very clear in her mind. And so, she came to the Prophet ﷺ one day and she said, I have something I need to complain to you about. And he said, to her sallallahu alaihi wasallam, speak to me as much as you want. I'm not going to turn away until you're done. And so she had a habit of walking as she was talking. And so she started walking and talking, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is walking with her, following her around, listening to her. She had a mental illness. She didn't really have anything to say. But she was just walking and talking, and the Prophet ﷺ made her feel satisfied, so that she got to speak and complain or whatever she wanted to do to the Prophet ﷺ. But you see how inaccessible people can be, right? People that we are trying to get into the highest position so that they can serve us in some way, shape, or form, but you can't even get to sit down and talk to them. When we had, a year ago, when all of this started, we asked Allah Azza wa Jalla to lift this genocide from our brothers and sisters. But how difficult. They show up at your doorstep, in the masjid, at your houses, in your mailbox, on your phones. Right? All of these politicians, they show up. They can't wait to talk to you when they want your vote. But when you have a problem that you want to talk with them about, how hard was it to get a sit down? How hard was it to go and they were protesting outside their offices because they didn't want to talk to you. Right? This is not how we treat people. This is not the example that the Quran and Sunnah lays out for us in terms of how do you work with people civically, politically, so on and so forth. The example of the Prophet ﷺ is very different. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشْيِكَ وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, be moderate in the way that you walk and lower your voice, because indeed the most displeasing of sounds is the sound of braying donkeys. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, even the way we speak, He tells us to talk in a calm manner, not to be shouting over people, yelling at them, and not necessarily trying to get your point across, just trying to get your voice across. And you see this happening when you see people arguing and they're so passionate about all these kinds of things in debates or whatever it may be. But these are not the ethics and values that Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam teach us. We're seeing this happen all around us, but this is not the example for us. And so for us, even if we choose to engage in this area, who do we learn from about how do you what kind of ethics and debate should you have? What kind of a campaign should you run? What kind of a platform should you have? All of these things, unfortunately, when even people from our community assume these roles, who is there to teach them these things? It is only the examples that are around them in the first place, which is why sometimes, unfortunately, you see they end up like they end up, or the system consumes them as it is. But we have a responsibility to make sure that we source our behavior, our everything from the Quran and Sunnah. Everything should be sourced in the Quran and Sunnah. It doesn't matter what the system around you is, the system will conform to you. When you go to your workplace and they tell you, you have to come to this party or something and we're going to have alcohol, you don't conform. You don't just go and do whatever it is they're telling you to do so that you can fit in. You lay down your barriers, you lay down your boundaries, and you make it very clear, these are things I cannot engage in. Right? So we do this in other parts of our lives. We have to be mindful, we have to be conscious that our kids are watching this stuff. They're seeing how these candidates behave. They're seeing how they're talking about each other. They're seeing how they are speaking about issues of public importance. Where are these values coming from? And any time you adopt a system that does not adopt its principles and values from the creator of this existence, you're always going to find yourself with problems, and it's always going to lead to something else. What is guidance? Hidayah. Guidance is acknowledging you don't know. And so you're turning to a source of guidance to give you that hidayah. And so if your hidayah comes from the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you're always going to be on a smooth path. Meaning you're always going to have the right decision, even whether or not the people like it, you're always going to be on the better path. But if your guidance comes from people who themselves are just making this stuff up as it comes along, or deciding whatever is right and wrong based on whatever the flavor of the tide is, then that's not the way for us to achieve and accomplish anything. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal for His help. The Prophet ﷺ, in a few of his ahadith, he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. That whoever has in their heart the smallest amount of arrogance will not enter Jannah. Right? Will not enter Jannah. And if they're a believer, they will not enter Jannah immediately until they are absolved of their sin in some other way, either during the ahwal al-qiyamah, during the trials of the Day of Judgment, or through Jahannam itself. But whoever has the smallest amount of arrogance in their heart will not enter Jannah. And the Sahaba, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, they said, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ يُحِبُّ أَن يَكُونَ ثَوْبُهُ حَسَنًا وَنَعْلُهُ حَسَنًا. That people like that their clothes should be nice, their sandals should be nice. The same things you think about, right? We often attribute arrogance to physical appearance only, and it's not only to physical appearance. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. Allah is beautiful, He loves beauty. You know maybe that part of the hadith. It's part of this longer hadith. That Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty, that you should present yourself in a good way. Al-kibru batrul haq wa ghamtun nas. He said, kibr, arrogance, is rejecting or mocking the truth, rejecting the truth, and having contempt for people, looking down on people, and not giving them respect, not treating them in a respectable manner. He says, this is kibr. This is kibr, that you would be, you would ignore the truth and you would treat people this way. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ بِأَهْلِ النَّارِ. Should I not inform you about the people of hellfire? This is very, very strong hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Should I not inform you about the people of the hellfire? And he gave three descriptions. كُلُّ عُتُلٍ جَوَادٍ مُسْتَكْبِرٍ. Every violent, impertinent, or ill-mannered and arrogant person. Every violent, meaning someone that has no problem, inducing violence or causing people or supporting violence. And impertinent, ill-mannered, the way that they behave themselves. You can see it on their behavior, ill-mannered, how they treat people that are around them, how they treat or how they talk as well. And mustakbir, every arrogant person. Every arrogant person, again, we know what arrogance is, boastful, looking down on people, so on and so forth. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, احتجت الجنة والنار فقالت النار في الجبارون والمتكبرون وقالت الجنة في ضعفاء الناس ومساكينهم فقضى الله بينهما إنك الجنة رحمتي أرحم بك من أشاء وإنك النار عذابي أعذب بك من أشاء ولكليكما علي ملؤها. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that hellfire and Jannah, paradise and hell, they had an argument. Right? They had an argument. And in other narrations, we understand. These are things we can't fully understand because of our limitations right now. But the hellfire and Jannah are also described as they're living things. They're living things. They talk. They speak. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to talk and speak. So he says that hellfire and Jannah were having an argument. And Jahannam, it said, the arrogant and proud are going to be in me. Right? Meaning he's saying, I'm boasting because I get to punish the arrogant and boastful people. And Jannah is boasting because saying, in me are the weak and those that are poor and humble. Meaning I will be rewarding those that are poor and humble. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judged between them and he said, Jannah, you are my mercy. Through you I shall show my mercy to whoever I wish. And Jahannam, you are my punishment. And through you I shall punish whoever it is I wish. And he said, both of you will have your fill. Both of you will have your fill. But the description of what Jannah, right? فِي الْجَبَّارُونَ وَالْمُتَكَبِّرُونَ. People that think of themselves as almighty, the people that are arrogant in and of themselves, these are the people that are going to be inside of me. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لَا يَنْظُرُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِلَى مَنْ جَرَّ إِزَارَهُ بَطَرًا. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on the day of resurrection, Allah will not look at the person who trails his garment out of pride. Who trails his garment out of pride. And this was one of the things that the Arabs at the time used to do, that they had their thobes, and the more cloth you had to your shirt, that means the more rich, the more wealthy you were. Because if you can only afford, it doesn't matter today, you get a large, extra large, medium, it's all the same cost. But in that time, it was different. An extra large costs more than a medium, right? Meaning the longer it was, means you have more money to pay for the cloth. And so he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah is not going to look at those people because they would intentionally buy the longer cloth, let it drag on behind them. Why? To show people without saying a word, I have money. I have so much money I can let my clothes drag on the ground. It doesn't matter. This was a way of showing arrogance without speaking, without saying anything. And so he says Allah will not even look at such people that want to, even without saying the words, they just want people to understand that they're showing arrogance. And in today's world, this happens in multiple ways as well. You have to be cautious. You have to know your intentions. You have to know exactly what is behind the reason you're making a specific type of purchase. Why do you want to buy a specific type of watch? Are you making sure that everybody can see it? Sometimes even in these, these videos, these social media influencers they have very expensive watches on. And so in the videos, they're making sure you can see the watch. Their hand this is all stuff, their study is done on this. They're making sure that throughout the video, you see the watch that they have on their hand. So because when you're listening to this guy, you're like, man, this guy's rich. He knows what he's talking about. Look at the watch he's wearing. Right? And I've been behind the scenes in some of these places. A lot of these things are borrowed. They're not even owned by the people. It's a fake sense of haughtiness, arrogance. It's not even really owned by these people as well. But again, Allah Azza wa Jal will not look at such a person. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Hadith Qudsi, he said, قال الله عز وجل العز إزاري والكبرياء ردائي فمن ينازعني في واحد منهما فقد عذبته. Allah Himself has said, honor is my izar, is my garment, and pride is my cloak. Whoever wants to fight with me about these things, I'm going to punish him. Meaning this honor, this pride, And kibr in and of itself means to be above other people, right? And again, Allah Azza wa Jalla is the creator of all of existence. There is no one. He is Al-Kabir, Allahu Akbar, we say, right? This belongs to Allah. And Allah is saying, if you want to argue and fight with me for this position, then I am going to punish you. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla for His forgiveness if we've ever behaved in such a way. And Allah, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يزال الرجل يذهب بنفسه حتى يكتب في الجبارين. That a person will continue to display his arrogance until he is recorded amongst the Jabbareen, those who are extremely haughty and arrogant. فَيُصِيبُهُ مَا أَصَابَهُم. And so at some point in time, what has afflicted other people like him will afflict him. What has afflicted other people like him will afflict him. And you know that all these people that are perpetrating this violence, this murder, this killing in the world, the source of this is also this arrogance and pride and wanting to have this power over other people. And so we have confidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give them what they deserve, just like all the other oppressors that came. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His justice. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. عباد الله، إن الله أمرنا بالصلاة والسلام على النبي فقال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين وعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم اجعلنا مجتمعين على الحق غير متفرقين فيه واغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولجميع المؤمنين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله